I'm John Beaudin. We're up to our entire interview with Mark Farner. I think this is our 5th interview with Mark. Always a joy and always forthright and always really honest with his answers. He's a spiritual man. And if you've been listening to the individual clips, you might have heard he's also a farmer. But he talks about all the hits, talks about Don Brewer, not getting back into Grand Funk, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, his good friend Janis Joplin, Led Zeppelin, and a whole bunch more in this whole clip. I'm John Beaudin, Mark Farner, on Rock History Book.
Hey, John.
Hey, Mark, how are you, man?
Good. Proud to be sucking air, brother.
The last time I talked to you, I was in Moncton, New Brunswick. Then the time before that, I was in Calgary, and now I'm back in Calgary. But how you been, man? We're going to talk about the new video series in a second, but how you been keeping? How's everything?
Great, man. Been busier than a one-eyed cat watching two rat holes.
Where you come up with this stuff? Where you come up with this stuff, man?
They're just old colloquialisms, you know.
Listen, I've been asking everyone lately if they, and you know the answer to this, but I've been asking everyone, hey, do you have an end date, not death? Do you have a date where you're going, yeah, I've had enough of this? I just talked to Rich from Kansas, and he says, I kind of like doing this, though. This is why God put me here or whatever. Everyone says the same thing. What about you? Do you ever look at that? I mean, you seem healthy. You're doing it?
As long as I'm hitting my notes, brother, if my ears get so bad that I can no longer hit my pitch, then I'm saying, see ya. God bless everybody. I'm out of here. I'm going to spend my last days with my tinnitus, and because I do have tinnitus, but thank God, dude, we can boost the monitors up above that shit.
What are you thinking about the 50th anniversary Grand Funk Tour?
You mean the Grand Fraud Tour?
Is that what you're calling them?
Yeah, the Grand FAUX Railroad. It's too bad, because it's really dishonest. As legal as it may be, it is completely dishonest to the fans. And the fans are taking a slap in the face, just like they are with that fake foreigner that's out there. There's not even an original member in that band, and they go out as Foreigner without telling the prospective audience that there's no original members. But the audience, the fans, don't get the truth. They get screwed again. And I think the fans have been screwed enough, man. Why not tell people the truth and go out, with a chest held high instead of, hiding behind your dark glasses and trying to present a fraud.
Yeah, Mick Jones is not. Last time I heard, he wasn't going. He'd come out for a few songs, and then someone said, "No, I just saw them," and he didn't come on stage. I went, "Oh,
yeah, that's the last word that I got, John. He's not even in it."
Is there a point where, and each time I've talked to you, is there a point where if they did want you to join the fold? I mean, legally, it's probably more complicated than people know. I don't know. You tell me. But is there a point where you wouldn't go back, or what are your thoughts on going back with Grand Funk if it ever came up?
No, if I was treated fairly, if I was 1/3 of what was going on, and we all shared thirds, well, that would be amicable. Under any other circumstances, I will continue to do what I'm doing. But I have, for 24 years now, I have said, if they wanted to go back out and give the fans what neither one of us can give the fans separately, if they want to give them the original tree in that recipe, I'm willing. Let's go do it. But every time that is met with laughter, and it's just, they diss on it, and it's like, I wish that I could say to you, what's going on even now. It's just absolutely criminal what is allowed to go on in law. And then, in order to to even question it, you got to file a lawsuit. So
when I asked Dawn, it started, me talking to you started with, well, they were doing a tour, and then I said, well, I'll talk to Mel or Dawn. And then when I talked to Dawn on the phone, and yours was a phoner in the beginning too, which was, but anyway, when I talked to Dawn, he had said that, well, I think we're giving them, I said, well, without Mark, don't you think the fans are, isn't it disingenuous? I mean, and he said, well, I think the fans want what we're giving them. And I went, really? Like, you think that? And the comments, the plethora of comments, like people are going, what the?
Yeah.
They were pissed when he said that.
I got the same kind of reaction because I just pointedly said to Don, why don't we go make the money that we can make while the band is all still sucking air? What, I mean, isn't there something about, the financial rewards that we all could be sharing? We could be making way more money than you or I are making separately. He says, we're making as much as the real band could make. And I went, oh my God. And then, somebody kind of...
All the fans are gasping now. As you just said that, all the fans I know that are going to watch this video are going, what?
Yeah. So I think that's how bad he doesn't want to be around me. And considering a friend of mine who works DEA in Washington, D.C., told me, he said, Farner, if this guy sets you up, think about this. If somebody sets you up, they premeditate this, they pull it off. How bad are they going to want you to be around them for fear that you are like them? And that's what people do. They figure that you're like them and that you will retaliate in some way and smoke their ass somehow. And I could not, until he mentioned it, John, it had not crossed my mind. But after that, I thought, wow, that makes some sense. But you could build different scenarios and make sense with.
It's the jealousy theory, Mark. I have to interrupt you. It's the jealousy theory. People are going around going, she's very possessive. She's this, or he is, whoever the person that was overly jealous, because they're already thinking. They think you think like them. They're cheaters, and that's why they're jealous.
There you go.
Yeah. And you know what? I never heard it put that way, but yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. Let's talk about the new series, the video series. I was very excited about this. I thought it was such a great idea because, people, every time I talk to a guitarist, someone will say, hey, can you do more technical stuff? I'm going, I'm a drummer. I'm not a guitarist. And I don't know. But tell me, what was the impetus for this? I mean, what made you think of doing this?
Well, a friend of mine sent me a link and he says, Farner, is this really how you play Sin's a Good Man's Brother? And the guy starts off with the wrong chord, John. I mean, immediately it's like wrong. That one's wrong. That one's wrong. It sounds similar, but it definitely isn't the chords I use. And there's this one guy, I forget the name of his program, or, he's got a YouTube channel, something about chords. And he's a very good, precise player. And he can tell you it's an augmented 9th, 14th, Z9, whatever it is, I couldn't tell you squat about that. But he is picking out some different, early funk songs. Save the Land was one, and Sin's a Good Man's Brother was one. And he played it down like on the 5th fret. And it sounded good. It didn't sound offensive to the ear. And it sounded similar, but it was played in the wrong position. So the way I came up with it was at the 12th fret. And I show that in the videos. I show exactly where it was at. But these videos, brother, are not for somebody who's a novice. It has to be someone who's a player, and they can look and go, Oh, that's what he did. Because that's the comments that I've been getting so far are people who are players. And oh man, that is so good because it's simple. Okay, if it's coming from me, brother, it's gonna be simple. That's the way I play. But it's my ears searching for the notes and chords that I'm hearing in my head, and that's what Farner chords is all about. I'm showing the chord inversions, and I'm showing the fingering, and then like people, Let's Stop the War. I show, because a lot of people have asked me about the harmonics that were played in there. How did you get that sound? And just by barely touching the string and plucking it at certain frets, you get that chime that comes from it. It's an actual, it'll ring forever, you know. But I show that, and people, players, of course, look and they go, "Oh my God, that no wonder," no wonder I couldn't get it. I was trying to do it some other way. Probably, somebody who's an accomplished guitar player. But those guys like me who have been self-taught, they'll catch on to this real quick.
Where can the people see the videos on your website?
Yeah, markfarner.com. It's called Farner Chords. Jimmy Romeo, who is the cinematographer who shot this, he's a good friend of mine. He used to play in a band in Detroit, DC Drive and Adrenaline, and those guys actually fronted my presentation of some shows I did back in the 80s, and they are a great band. There was like 4 brothers in the band and a bass player. But Jimmy Romeo went on, he was a sax player and singer, and he went on into some cinematography stuff. And I always loved his imagination when we were doing, rehearsals or doing songs. He always had some great ideas. So he's kept himself in that vein. And with this Farner Chords series, there's 2 cameras, one on the hand that's chording and one on the hand that's picking, so that the techniques, because you got to consider both ways, both things that's going on. And that was the only way to do it. So he said, "Yeah, man, we're going to do this split screen." And I'm going, "Great, because that's what needs to happen," And so far, comments that we've been receiving are just nothing but praise. And the common comment is that, "I can't believe you're doing this for free. You're giving this to the fans. What a great thing to do." And, those kind of the similar comments, John. And that, I'm telling you, it overwhelms my heart, because that's where it's coming from.
Yeah. Nice service, man. I mean, when I heard it, I emailed her right away and said, "Oh, I want to talk about this. This is such a cool thing." And giving back is something that doesn't come naturally for everyone. Maybe they're not, as we are following our noses sometimes in life, it doesn't always come up. But there's nothing more gratifying than that, and everyone wins.
Absolutely, brother. I mean, that is, you can't outgive love, and that's where that's coming from. And I think the more we give that love, the abundance comes. You just can't outgive it. You'll have more, and then more, and then more. Givers never run out of things to give, never run out of the stuff, because we're giving it from love, from that perspective of love. And our reward, it isn't the reason that we give, but it's unavoidable. Yeah. The reward that we get is this overwhelming sensation when I read one of those comments, brother. And it's almost like a tearful moment in my heart that somebody gets it and they understand. And besides me getting that reward, God is love. And God's like given me that reward, that overwhelming reward. but reading those words, they're getting the reward too. Those people who understand, it's like, it's like we're standing in the same proximity and sharing the same moment in spirit.
I was asked on a podcast a couple of months ago. They asked who's the most comforting person that you've interviewed, and I named you. I said I don't know what it is. I hate to say the cliche answer, which is you feel like you're just talking to a guy. We're having interesting conversation, but I said there's just something. I thought maybe it's his faith. I don't know what it is. I'm not a Christian. I'm more of a Buddhist, but I think we're all plugged into the same thing. I said, I think it's that, but also he's I'm just telling you this. I says, I think he knows why he's here. He knows he's plugged in. He makes an effort. I use this example too. I said, when you go to a party, Mark would be the guy come up to you and say, if he sees you're uncomfortable, he'd come up to you and say, hey, how's it going? What's your story? Tell me something about you. But having said that, were you always comfortable with the media thing when you were younger? Did that come naturally for you? Because you seem comfortable in your skin.
Yeah, the only part, early on in the funk days, Terry Knight, your first manager, told us, and here we are, Don and I are 20 and Mel 19 years old. Here's this guy who's in his late 20s talking to us, telling us, I'm going to create a mystique. I'm going to keep you from the press. If they want to do an interview, I'll do an interview. Well, then after we matured and we were kept from the press and they were hating us because they couldn't get to us and talk to us. And then we started reading some of the interviews with Terry Knight, where he got an opportunity to tout his managerial abilities and his producing. And it was all about Terry Knight. And then what really got us, what got me for sure, is when he took a centerfold in Cashbox and Billboard, like around Christmas, and he's shooting a bird saying, and to all a good night around the Christmas time, like, are you shitting me? Are you shitting me? You would do that? What an ego. So then I said, if anybody wants an interview, I'm giving the interview. I'll take the interview because that's not who the hell we are. That is not who we are. And so when I got from that point on, brother, I just embraced anyone who wanted to talk to me about any aspect of what we were doing. Even why we were kept and why the critics hated us. It was all because of that scheme. And it was all, the world has so many schemes going on, brother. Oh, shit.
We're in a scheme world. Yeah. With Terry, what did he bring to the table? I mean, each time we've talked about Terry and what happened, and I'll reiterate that when I do a preamble to the video. But what did he bring to the table to make this machine work?
He brought the hype. And he had the gift of gab. Yeah. There was a banker lady who fronted him some money based on what he promoted, and I don't know because I wasn't privy to the conversations. I just saw them interacting. And I said, boy, she's really got a lot of confidence in him. And he was able to win her. And that he had that about him, that he could actually win your confidence. Even though he's lying through his ass, he could win your confidence. He's that, an actor, a total poser. But that's what he had going for him. He didn't have the fairness that we hoped that would have been there. When I kicked open the lawyer's desk and by accident and looked down, and here's the contract between Terry Knight and Capitol Records, We were signed to Terry Knight for the record deals, not Capitol. Capitol was releasing them, but it was a production deal between Goodnight Productions and Capitol Records. And he told us the band was receiving 6%. This is more than the Beatles got. We believed him. At that point, we were still young, 20-some-year-old, early 20s, and we believed him. We went, wow, we're getting more than the Beatles. And then I kicked that desk drawer open. I looked down. I see a contract between Terry Knight and Capitol Records for 16%, Brother John. 16. That means he's keeping 10, and the band splits 6, and then he takes a management commission of that 6%, and then he takes my publishing, which is 50% of what that song will make. So, man, he was able to do that all with a smile and a very convincing. I hope, he got a clear head before he checked out of his bone suit. I hope he had time to regret, even if it wasn't available to him, just to go to that spot and go, man, I wish I would have. I hope that people learned from watching and hearing, and that they're learning now from your and my conversation here, that those people are out there. They can be very convincing. They can be your brother. I mean, that's what he always call you. I'm the fourth band member. I'm your brother. I'm the fourth band member, because that's what he wanted us to believe. And we bought into it. We were just young kids. Oh man, to know now and go back and do it over.
Well, the good thing is, I hate that. We're happy you're still around. Someone, that last conversation you had with him, we've talked about it before, but do you think, forgiving someone, and I said this last time I talked to you, that hit the audience, like just blew them away. I mean, up on top of that, the video did incredibly well. Do you think he got it when you talking to him that last time?
I don't think that anybody who manipulates like that has a concept of forgiveness. They just
doesn't have the software. He doesn't have the software. Maybe it's just not in him.
Bingo, brother.
What did, remind me again? What did you tell him?
I told him that I forgave him.
Yeah.
And I went down a list of some of the things that were very obvious that happened, not only the contract between Capitol Records and what he did to us there, but when we did our European tour, and he told us that he was going to put the money, because we couldn't take the tax hit coming back to the U.S., that he was going to put the money in a Swiss bank account in the most stable world currency, which at the time I believe he said was Deutschmarks.
Mm-hmm.
So like $1.5 million. We never saw 1 penny of it, because he took it and he put it in his name. But I reminded him that I know all of this now. And besides this, whatever else that you've done, I want it out of my life. I want free from it. So that's why I forgive you. And I hope you can understand. And I hope that you can forgive yourself and get right with God.
Did he say anything?
He was on the other end of the phone going, well, if you ever get to where you're going to have a divorce, well, just call me, because I know all about that. I mean, after saying what I said to him, that is what he said to me. And that's what kind of gave me the impression that he wasn't going there. He wouldn't, like you say, the software wasn't available.
Well, as they say down south, that dog won't hunt. He couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Do the fans come up to you and talk to you and say, hey, why aren't you in Grand Funk anymore? What's the main thing they ask you when they see you? Look, I'm waving my fists in the air. What the heck?
Well, a common thing that does happen, Brother John, is people will come to me and say, oh, I saw you last year up to New York, blah, blah, at this casino. And I go, no, you saw the faux funk. And they're going, no, that was you up there on that. And I said, no, it wasn't, honey. That was not me. If you went and saw a band that claims to be Grand Funk or Grand Funk Railroad, you saw 2 of the original members and 3 imposters, because they can only be a tribute band. They cannot be Grand Funk. There's only 3 people that can be Grand Funk. That's myself, Don, and Mel. And they go, oh my God, I thought it was you up there. They don't, people are getting old, man. Maybe they need a new prescription here.
The fans, I'm surprised sometimes with the fans, whereas they don't know as much. The real fans know. The real fans are the ones looking at your video series.
Oh, yeah.
The real guitarist fans. A lot of fans there's a lot more fair weather fans. They like the music. It's kind of part of their life, but it's not like me or like you when you were growing up. You knew everybody in the back of the album. So
yes.
I'm seeing that. That's the problem with these bands that are not really bands.
Yes, absolutely.
And they have mortgages now. They have mortgages and they have all these things to worry about, right?
Yeah, brother. And let's face it, they love the music. They love that song they heard on the radio. They love the music. This is why tribute bands are so successful. They're playing the music that people love. Those other bands that are out there claiming to be, the whoever the original band was, whether it was Journey or Farner or Grand Funk, they can have all kind of different members. These people, the majority, are not hardcore fans who are offended by somebody trying to represent the band that they know and love, because, like you were just saying, you referred to, they looked at the albums, they knew the pictures, they knew the history, they loved the songs, but those bands, even my old bandmates, they go out and make the money off of the songs that I wrote. I wrote 92% of that music. So when these fans come to me and they say, oh, I saw you, I break the bad news to them. And it's not like I'm pissed off about it and trying to, convey to them that I'm pissed off. I'm just disappointed. I think that's as low as I can possibly go, because I won't allow myself to hold someone in debt. That's such a negative force that I know enough to avoid it. So all I can do is shed a little truth on it, and hopefully this person, and they're not a hardcore fan, obviously, but hope that they understand at least the reasoning why I don't endorse that kind of thing.
One last thing about Don. I was listening to the clip where I talked to him about we're an American band, and he said, well, I'm not a good guitarist, but I knew a few chords, and I came up with the some of the song. Did that happen?
He came in with 2-note chords, like like 2 notes. But he never came. He was singing out the verse. He didn't have the chords for a verse. He had we're an American band. We're an American band. We're coming to your town. We'll help you party it down. We're an American. He had that in 2 notes.
Like not your lead. You come in there.
No way. But I was feeling it. Lynn Goldsmith, of course, was the one who suggested that we do a song about who we were, and we're an American band. Don come in with the lyrics. And then, when we got done recording at Criteria in Miami, and Todd Rundgren was mixing the album, Brewer comes to me and he says, Mark, I've never had 100% write credit on any song. Do you mind if I take it on this? Why was he asking me, Brother John? Because I wrote the music. I insisted on the cowbell that makes that a pretty famous cowbell. I wrote the drum intro that he plays, and I wrote all the chords. That was coming from me. Not to be, pat myself on the back, but just proclaiming the territory that is mine, that he takes the credit for. Sorry for the fans that believe he wrote, hand him a guitar and have him show you how he wrote that song. I think people would be amazed.
Did you really lose millions on that?
Sorry?
Did you really lose millions on that song?
Oh, I don't call it losing millions. I gave up the opportunity to make millions, but I've been repaid in so many ways, Brother John.
Besides being an incredible musician that helps shape rock and roll, what else are you good at?
Farming.
Really?
Yeah, man.
Why did I not know that?
My wife and I love to farm. We're grounded, hands and knees, barefoot, digging into the dirt. October, brother, we are planting garlic, right? I mean, the snow is coming down and we're out there planting garlic. And year before last, or no, I guess it was last year, our harvest we had 364 head of garlic. And that's quite a lot of garlic, especially when you come to the harvest process and you got to take all the dirt off of it and hang it up in a place. And we put fans on it in our big pole barn because it's nice and warm in there. And it forms that paper because the paper, until you cure it out, the paper is just a membrane. It's kind of like a skin on, like an onion. And then when it dries out, then I've still got garlic that we grew last year that's good, and we're using it every day. That's part of my health routine, eating garlic. But here's the point. I mean, as long as we're on garlic, did you know that there are two constituent chemicals in the garlic that don't see each other until you mince it or chop it? And once you've chopped or minced this garlic, you're not supposed to use that until you give it 10 or 15 minutes of setting time. So the first thing I do, because what happens while it's setting is it forms this, it starts with an A and it's one of those words, it's about that long, but it's the healing properties and the flavor that comes from leaving it set for that curing time before you add it to your dish, whether you're going to use it in the raw form or if you're going to cook it into something, makes no difference. You need to let it set for 10 or 15 minutes.
No idea.
Yeah, man.
What's garlic do for you? What's the benefits of garlic? It's
a blood purifier. It's a natural antibiotic, antifungal. I mean, if there was one thing that you could do, a friend of mine used to tell me how he would take it. Of course, he always put it in whiskey and honey, put a shot of whiskey in there. But he said, if I feel a cold coming on, Farner, I just grind it up and I put it in a little whiskey in a jar with some honey, and I leave it set. And then I'll take a teaspoon or a couple of teaspoons and that it arrests whatever's going on. And it's serious, man. I mean, that's one of the old time cures, and friends of mine have told me about other ones that people use, but garlic is in most of them.
I had no idea. How far back do you go with farming? How far back? When do you start farming? I
used to drive the John Deere Model M wide front end. There was the M with the narrow front end. But my granddad, my father's father, he was planting non-GMO. That's all they had back then. Real corn that had real weeds coming up between the rows. So you had to use the tractor to cultivate, and that would cover the weeds up and arrest them until the corn got up to where it could shadow out those weeds and come to maturity. And I was 7, 8 years old doing that, because I was at that age, I was strong enough to grab the handle that lifts the cultivator and squeeze it, because you got to release the spring. And I found out that if you pushed forward, there wasn't much squeezing that had to take place. You just push forward, and I could do that and release that cultivator and drop it down in the rows. And I loved, keeping a straight line with that tractor. I loved being able to go right down that row, and it was like there was something guiding me. I've had that line in there, kind of like a dirt bike rider or a motocross rider. They draw a line before they get there. They're following a line, this imaginary line in their head. That's what I had going for me. And I loved it back then. And I loved knowing that when we put that corn on the table, and my dad's other 3 brothers and all the children, all my cousins, and everybody's gathered at grandma and grandpa's house, that I had a hand in putting that corn on the table, brother. Talk about something special.
That old Grand Funk special, that thing that's on YouTube where you're riding the motorcycle through the field.
Yeah.
Where was that?
That was in Parshallville, Michigan. It was across the street from the studio that we lovingly called the Swamp. And that was where we cut the tracks to American Band. And we cut the tracks to Good Singing and Good Playing that Zappa produced. But in both cases, we went to other studio to do the vocals. We went to Criteria to do the vocals for We're an American Band. And we went out to LA to this, I can't even remember the name of the studio there, that Zappa liked to work in. And then when he got there, he says, I want to take you guys on a tour of the studio. We're going, well, okay. So we're walking down this it's like a hallway that's dimly lit. And he opens the first door, and you walk in, and here's this bed, Brother John, with a big crank at the end and some leather straps coming up. And there was whips hanging on the wall and chains and stuff. And I'm going, what?
What kind of party is this?
Yeah, what is this? And this is in a recording studio. I'd say, what is it? You get in the mood, and then you can go in here and engineer. So there was all these odd rooms in this studio. And but Frank, he did his job. He was a musical genius in his own respect, I believe. And so was Rundgren in his own respect. And God bless them for what they did to put our music where it ended up in the ears and in the hearts of the fans.
What do you think is most misunderstood about Frank Zappa?
I think people thought he was nuts because of the lyrical content. I thought, a lot of people thought he was on drugs. The boy never took drugs, never. And when he drank, it was Shirley Temple's, Brother John. I kid you not. He was straight as straight could be. And the only thing he really overindulged in that I could see as a observer was coffee, man. There was not enough coffee in the world for that man. Why we were recording, he had one of those air pots where you pump and it comes out into your cup, and he had that sitting on the producer's desk over to the side of the console in the mixing, in the control room. And he would look down in there and he's drinking his coffee, and he always drank it black. And then he'd go over there and he'd look again. And when it got about halfway down, he'd send the engineer to make another pot of coffee. Serious. He would make a cup of coffee nervous.
to you, Todd Rundgren is, how would you describe him?
Is a musical genius in his own respect. And a lot of people, you know, they've told me other things that they thought about him. But I think anybody that can set up, that can get the microphones in the right spot without much, you know, it's just his experience and what he's used. And you don't have to put EQ. Every time you add equalization to a microphone, you're adding noise. You know what I'm talking about, the noise floor. And so there's all this noise that gets built up. And Todd did everything from flat. He would duck the frequencies that were preventing him from hearing the frequency. And he showed me this in an example because I was asking him, I said, in the right side of stereo, as I'm standing behind him, he's at the mixing console, that guitar over in the right, I said, don't you think it could use a little like 3.5K? That would actually separate it from the keyboard that's over here in the left channel, because they're sharing that frequency and they're fighting a little bit. He says, yeah, but you don't add more 3.5. You take away the frequencies that are preventing you from hearing the 3.5, leaving 3.5 alone, and ducking those things that are muffling it. And he did that, and I went, dude, the light went on. Bingo! That's it. Wow. That was a key. It was like, bam, there you go. And I hope people that are listening to this conversation that you and I are having are getting that. Any kind of musician that fools with equalization and tries to get a mix, man, you can't add shit. You got to take shit away to get that nice, clean mix.
For musicians who, and I run into more than a few, and you do probably too, what advice would you give them for them to be grounded? I mean, being in front of the stage, I'm overstating the obvious with you. You've done it so many times and done it very well, where, you know, there's that, it's real. They're loving you. It's true, but they don't really know you, but they love your music, and that's why you're there. And it's everyone's happy. But how do you stay grounded? I mean, the farming thing to me is amazing, because I mean, getting into the ground and getting dirty is, yes. I mean, it goes back to the beginning of time. But what's your advice?
Well, the grounding that you're speaking of, Brother John, there is that physical grounding that takes place when you are on your hands and knees in the dirt. You can get the same kind of grounding walking barefoot in the sand on a beach. Seriously, there's something that happens, something that transpires in that kind of, you know, when you're hooking up with Mother Earth, skin to skin, so to speak. And for that grounding, there is the physical. But to keep your head grounded, flattery is as deceit, meaning not from the one who's flattering you. Certainly that's not their intention. It's when you buy it. That's when it becomes deceitful, because you're adding from one's imagination, so from another person's imagination, to your own stature, to your own self. You got to stay away from that. You got to keep away from that and just keep with who you know you are. Be grateful. Have the attitude of gratitude. Be grateful for, it's not a gift. Music is not a gift. A lot of people, I mean, more people refer to it as a gift, brother. I mean, this is what they've said to me. And I always correct them. It's not a gift. It's a talent. And we were all given talents. Some are great plumbers. I have a friend who plumbs his ass off. He's a great guy. He comes up with things. I go, where do you get that? He says, dude, I've been doing this 40 years. Are you kidding me? And there, everybody's got a talent in there. I just happen to have been able to use mine to make my income and provide a living for myself and my family. And therefore, I'm blessed. I'm very grateful to have that. But each of us have talents. And when we find that, we're able to hang on to it, identify with it, and let that be our grounding. Let that knowledge, that firmness, that affirmation of that be what keeps us on the ground, and don't let other people's words blow us up.
You know what I hear? I hear you're lucky. I said, well, wait a minute. I had to do the work to get into that room,
Yeah, brother. Lucky my ass.
Yeah. I mean, through the years, there must have been some, and every artist runs into the person that says, oh, the third song on the album, I like that. Tell me what that's about. I'm going, well, no, why don't you show the artist that you listen to it and say something about the song that you liked? Or else they'll go, or else they don't know anything about, and that happens to everybody. Because I go on YouTube and I don't watch a lot of people who do what I do. I just don't. It's just I just do my thing. I've been doing this 40 years. Speaking of 40 years.
Yeah.
So, have there been through the years, like just completely oddball questions that you didn't understand through artists, through interviewers?
Well, not really, because I'm kind of, off the cuff, as you know, and hopefully unless it's some kind of bullshit leading question that there's going to be a hook thrown at me, or that they're trying to drag me into some other confession or something. I just shoot from the hip, and I'm not offended by any question. And you know how many people have asked, is there anything you want to stay away from? I'm thinking, why do people ask that? Well, obviously.
How often does that happen? Curious.
It happens more than it doesn't, brother. Think about that.
I've never asked that question. I don't think so. Oh, Randy Meisner. I asked him, I said, are you willing? Are we going to be talking honestly about, like, Dawn, the two Dawns? And he says, no, he told me you'd be more worried about me talking about Glenn Fry. He says, he's the guy I had the trouble with. And he says, well, he punched him in the face. Right. Ooh. Bernie Ledden poured a beer on Glenn Fry's head. And he told me that. And he says, no, I don't have a problem. He says, it's out there. It's what. But that's the only time I think I ever asked. Because Zeppelin thing, where you guys, I don't think anybody's surprised by the fact that you could blow Zeppelin off because you guys were such an amazing, I mean, you're known as a great live band in Detroit when that happened. So they try to unplug you?
They did.
They literally did.
Yes, they literally unplugged everything. The only thing you could hear, brother, was Brewer back there on the drums. And he's got this look on his face like, what the hell? He's looking around. And then Terry Knight comes walking out to the microphone. They turn the microphone on so he can make his brief announcement. Due to contractual obligation, Grand Funk has to leave the stage. And he's going like just trying to get us to, leave the stage. And as he says that, the audience at Olympia went bonkers, and they were going, boo, they throwing wine bottles, whiskey bottles, beer bottles, all this shit came towards the stage, and we're like ducking.
Did any of those hit Peter Grant?
It's a miracle. I mean, he was big enough that they all should have hit him, but he was standing in the wings, just making sure that we got off that stage.
Did you get the Zeppelin thing? Did you? What was your interpretation of those guys?
I thought they were good musicians, but as far as that whole British invasion thing, it just boggled my mind, because I never saw a British band who didn't sing in American English. And flattery, when you imitate someone, that is the most sincere form of flattery. So it was the opposite to me and my friend Janis Joplin, because we spoke of this as she was smearing chocolate all over the seats of a helicopter that the Rolling Stones were going to use next.
Why? She didn't like them? Why? Is this a joke?
This is the truth. This is the story, brother. She did not like, because like what you and I are just now, we would sit and have this conversation. British invasion, my ass. Those guys sing in American English because we are the only ones free. Those guys are born subjects to the crown. They're born subjects to assholes. And I'm going, yeah, baby, talk to me. And she's smearing this chocolate all over these plush seats in this helicopter that's been done up like a motorhome inside. And that's back when Mick wore those white satin pants, the ones with the big brown stain on the back. Woo! She was, and it was Florida, hotter than the sheriff's pistol, brother. I'm talking that melted chocolate. There's no way they could have avoided setting in it unless they put something down and sat on that.
I was talking to John from Orleans, and he had she recorded one of the songs he and his ex-wife wrote, and I asked him, I said, well, what? There's so much mystery about. There's always mystery about someone who's dead, and the mystery about her, how she died, and all this stuff. But who was she to you? Who?
She was my friend. I mean, seriously, we were not boyfriend, girlfriend. We didn't have that going, but we hugged each other every time we saw each other. We embraced, we exchanged energy because she was such an extraordinary talent. And in her humble heart, she was just down to earth as she could possibly be. I got sick one time at Winter Garden. We're playing out, San Francisco. And during the drum solo, I ran back to the dressing room and I hurled. I just got rid of whatever it was that was in my stomach. And I mean, it all came out like a shotgun. I run back to stage. I grabbed my guitar just in time to run out and finish this song. And then I turn around to Brewer and I said, dude, this is it. I am sick. There's something, I can't do another song. Let's just. And so we walk off and here's Janis over there. And she's looking back and forth like, oh, what's going on here? And then when I finally got side stage, she came up to me, put her arms around me. What's the matter, honey? I said, oh my God, I feel like I'd have to get better to die, honey. I am feeling bad. She says, oh, I got your cure. She reaches down into that big paisley bag she had hanging around her shoulder. She pulls out a bottle of Ripple, brother John. Ripple wine. And I went, oh, but I mean, just looking at it made me, have to throw up again. But that was how she would apply the medicine. And her and I drank so much Southern Comfort and ate Hershey bars till it was coming out our ears. And I'm like buzzing from the sugar and what the hell the pancreas was going through to produce insulin. Oh my God. She was real. And we loved each other as friends, as brother and sister would love each other.
What was your reaction? I mean, we know what it was, but I'll ask, when you found out she had died, where were you and how did you find out?
When I heard, I just sat down. I was on the road. I sat down and I put my head in my hands and I let myself try and find her spirit.
Wow.
And I got a piece. I'm saying, well, she said what she had to say. She definitely said what she had to say. And I had a piece about, although I cried, it's like, you know, when my son died, I cried. I still cry. And I never hold it back because it needs to come out. That part needs to be vented. And no matter who's standing around, I could give a shit. When it comes, it comes. And that's the only thing that would stop it would be some kind of a pride. The ego would try and stop that because, oh, that makes you look like less than a man. You're crying. They can stuff that information. They can stuff. Got to let that stuff out. So, yeah, that's and I just felt like I had a piece about her leaving after a couple of days. You know, after it's settled in, I went, yeah, okay.
Were you surprised?
I was, because I didn't know, you know, how far. I'd never seen her. I mean, her and I got shit faced together, but we never, like, you know, passed out that way, or never got into anything but drinking booze and eating Hershey bars. You know, Hershey's getting a good commercial here, aren't they?
What do you think would have happened with her musically? I mean, it's hard to say, and I'm asking you to predict the future that never happened, but
I think if she'd went on, Brother John, that people would have loved her more and more and more as they got to know her, because she was of that mindset of not letting herself get caught up in all of the hype. And I chimed in with that. I mean, even back during our heyday, I know if I let that shit go to my head, I would have had a hard time finding a hat to fit on this thing, you know. I think she'd have done great, and people, like they are with me now, young people are coming up to me at the concerts, and especially like when we play South America, or, you know, we play in Guam, we play out of the country, Mexico, and the young people come, the teenagers are coming because, you know, their parents or their brothers or older brothers and sisters played the music. And you know, I mean, there's got to be like 4 generations in there in the audience, and they all appreciate the music. And she sang from her heart. You know that. You listen, you know, she sang from her heart. She believed what she was singing. And she even did Howard Tate's song, Get It While You Can. Oh my God, she did the shit out of that song, brother. Yeah, and it's on a live album that she put out. And I didn't even realize that she had done that. And Howard Tate is my guy, man. He's the guy I tried to pattern my vocal style after, because I just absolutely loved the way he sang.
I looked him up after the first time we talked, because he's been mentioned in every interview, and yeah, I get it, man.
Yeah. So that's who they would have seen mature, and the sweetness would have oozed right out of her.
Who is to you the most underrated band that didn't kind of fly through, didn't make it? You must have seen a lot of bands who you thought these guys are going to be huge, but it never happened.
Well, I can't really think of any. Can't think of any.
The ones you knew kind of did okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
The ones that I got to see, they made a thing of it.
Oh, the going from the 60s to the 70s, I think it was Jack Tempchin who wrote with Glenn Fry, told me, he says, I have this theory. He says, you know, he said the 60s didn't end till about 73, he says. I felt that there was so much 60s vibe, but other people have told me I don't see that at all. But what was your that going from the 60s to the 70s? And I was 10 in 1970, but what was your feel of music going from those two decades?
That the flower power of the 60s and the love beads and all of that hippie stuff was it was kind of left behind for a few years, eh? And then late 70s, people started picking it back up. They put the love beads back on, and they put the bell bottoms back on. But in between, and there was that freaking, what did they call that? That music,
What, disco?
disco. My God.
I,
How did you know that, John?
but as a musician, especially with the type of music because you were so in my vein as a music fan, I often thought, and I didn't hate disco, but I didn't buy it. I didn't hate it, but I, again, didn't ever buy a disco record. But I often thought, what do musicians think about this? Like, what the?
Yeah, man. Yeah. It was just, it's kind of, people ask me, why are you guys not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? And my standard answer is because we don't have that brown ring around our lips. And this is kind of like the same answer. Well, why didn't you get into, a lot of people got into doing disco records. Why didn't you? We didn't have that around our mind. Are you kidding me? That's so far removed from anything that I, as a songwriter, am capable of. I want to be true to my heart, and my heart rocks.
Were you ever asked to do anything like that?
No.
No. Well, it's good. Okay, sir. Again, I feel invigorated again. You've opened me up. You always do. You're
awesome.
You're awesome. Like my counselor.
All right. Thank God. God is love, man. And it's a love that makes us feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, really take good care of yourself. I'm looking forward to talking to you again soon.
I appreciate it, my Buddhist friend.
Take care, man.
God bless you, John.
You too, man.
Hope you've enjoyed that. Mark Farner has a brand new series, a video series called Farner Chords, where on his website, markfarner.com, you follow along. If you're an advanced player, you kind of have to be. If you want to do it exactly the way he did, they're on his website. Links in the description. If you want to donate to help the channel, there are links in the description. You can join our Patreon, get early access to all the videos. And keep in mind, there's now baseball hats available, Rock History Music baseball hats, Rock History Canada, and Rock History Book. Links in the description. Of course, all the t-shirts are still there. Like our videos, share our videos on social media, comment on them, and of course, subscribe to our channel. I'm John Beaudin. This is Rock History Book. Take care of yourself.